in April, in this video, I said, you must know MCP, you must know MCP, you must know MCP. If you do not know Model Context Protocol, you will not be working in this industry. That is also an empirical certainty. That's not my opinion. You can measure that. Because the goal today is to touch on Model Context Protocol and Agentic AI, which are, to most people, buzzwords, but I assure you they're not buzzwords. And then really focus on how Agentic AI is being leveraged in industry right now, which is just a tiny fraction of the overall capability of agents, right? So before we get started, I gave a.
It goes in and out, so.
Okay. I gave a speech in Germany in April. You guys can go to our YouTube channel, hear generally what my message was. You can go to youtube.com and F4.0 Solutions. But this short right here that says you must know Model Context Protocol. In April, the money quote in that speech. First off, I asked everyone in the room who here has heard of Model Context Protocol. So who in here has heard of Model Context Protocol? All right, so most of you are telecom is what I end up learning. It's like the vast majority of people are in telecom, all right? And half the room has heard of MCP, okay, half the room. I was in a room full of German engineers who work in industry, and less than a third of the people in the room had ever heard of MCP. And I could go into a facility, I could go into any show, I could go to any trade show right now in the United States. I could get up on stage and I could ask all the engineers in there, who has heard of MCP? And 90% of them are going to raise their hand in the United States. But a fraction raised their hand in Germany. A fraction. Well, you want to know the thing that I see, I travel all over the world. I speak all over the world. I spoke in I was in Prague in April, and then I went back to Portugal and gave a keynote address at the Critical Manufacturing MES Days. I spent time in Slovenia. I spent time all over the world. The European Union is on the verge of economic collapse. And that's an empirical certainty. It's an absolute empirical certainty. I mean, and what's amazing to me is how no one knows it. The European Union is so far behind in digital transformation, it boggles the mind. It boggles the mind. It is simply, what is happening in the European Union is simply unsustainable. And the biggest risk to Western civilization is the European Union. The European Union will collapse. Not might collapse. It will collapse. All the economic indicators are there. All of them. It boggles the mind. If you want to see the most important thing that I said in April, in this video, I said, you must know MCP, you must know MCP, you must know MCP. If you do not know Model Context Protocol, you will not be working in this industry. That is also an empirical certainty. That's not my opinion. You can measure that. Okay. The number of people who came up to me after that speech in April, there was one guy from Norway or whatever came up and, fuck you, Donald Trump, you're a Donald Trump guy. And, he just lit me up. You know what I mean? There were a lot of people who were unhappy with that statement. And today, they all know I was right. Do you know what I did after I came back from April? Who here writes software? Anybody here write code? Okay. So how many lines of code can you write in a day?
We thought without ChatGPT.
Without ChatGPT. Well, by the way, if you're writing code with ChatGPT, you're writing with the wrong large language models.
Yeah.
But,
ChatGPT for whatever else. That's
but
the ideal element.
All by yourself, How many lines of code could you write?
Working lines of code, 150, maybe.
150. Okay. Oh, an elite developer, an elite software developer can write 1,000 lines of code in a day. Okay. World class, your Google software developers, they can do 2,500 lines. Okay, that's the difference between a Google software developer and everybody else. Me, I'm a world class software developer. I write 750 lines. Since May, I've written 13.5 million lines of code and I've built 3 products. I'm going to show you 2 of them today. Only me, not another human being. I'm the only person who built both products, or the 2 products I'm going to show you today. Just me and agents. And part of what Ron and I were talking about was how do human beings interact with AI? You know, you'll hear a lot of terms about artificial intelligence, like general artificial intelligence, GAI, right? That is an AI. Artificial intelligence will replace human intelligence. Has everybody heard that? Is everybody afraid of that? Well, you shouldn't be afraid of that. Okay, I mean, only the most extreme theorists believe that that's possible. There's a whole host of reasons why human beings are uniquely positioned in the world, in the universe, like we are. Okay, and emotion plays a huge role. Emotion plays an enormous role in constructing how we think and solve problems at any given time in our life. Artificial intelligence has no emotion. And no matter how hard you try to model them, you can't achieve it. It's what makes us unique. Okay, so the fact of the matter is, when it comes to AI, it's about symbiosis. Okay, AI can do nothing without a human being. Can do nothing. There's a human that must interact with AI to achieve outcomes. And human beings can do things without AI. You shouldn't, but you can. And the reason you shouldn't is because if you write 150 lines of code and I write 13.5 million in 11 weeks, 13.5 million, by the way, 13.5 million lines of code is 70 years, 1 year ago. 70 years, 70 man years. And in 11 weeks, I wrote 13.5 million lines of code. I got to a point where I was interviewing for 1 of every 10,000 lines of code written. Okay, now today I'm not going to talk about writing software, but the reason I'm talking about that is because I want you to understand what the potential of agentic AI actually is. And we're going to talk about model context protocol. Model context protocol is how agents are useful to you. MCP is the API for artificial intelligence. Everybody knows what APIs are, right? Everybody knows what a RESTful API is. You guys have looked at a post and get. Okay, API. MCP is to AI as REST is to human beings and traditional software development. Okay, that's what we're going to talk about today. And then I'm going to talk about how industry is actually using it. And it's pretty anticlimactic. It's some impressive stuff, but it's pretty anticlimactic. I've talked to software developers all over the world. I haven't found anyone else who's written 13.5 million lines of code for 11 weeks. I happen to have, that cost me $4,000 a week, by the way. So there's a reason people haven't done that. The compute itself cost me $4,000. So I had for every week. So I had the money to spend. I had the capital to spend on that compute. I had the workstation set up in my lab. I basically would work with 10 different agents, 10 minutes at a time. So I would do 10-minute sprints. So every 2 weeks of software development for human beings was happening in 10 minutes. And I had 10 agents working at the same, or 5 agents working at the exact same time. So I would go 10 minutes, 10 minutes, 10 minutes, 10 minutes, 10 minutes. I'd take a 10-minute break, 10 minutes, 10 minutes, 10 minutes, 10 minutes, 10 minutes. And I did that 16 hours a day. Go ahead.
What was the quality?
One correction for every 10,000 lines of code. So 3.5 knots.
All in one language or multiple languages?
Multiple languages. No, primarily Node.js, Python, Node.js, Python, React were the 3. And what I'm going to show you today is mostly React and Python. Okay. Right here, who here I want to get some baseline. So who here works with agents right now? So how do you work with agents?
Yeah, so it's just really right now in the learning capacity. But basically, just building basic bots to do certain tasks like, scan my emails, set feeds up or look for specific emails from different people, just as a digital personal assistant, I guess.
And how accurate are your bots?
Oh, they hit or miss.
So give me on a scale of, for every 10 tasks, how many tasks have an error? For every 10 iterations, how many have an error?
I think it's about 50.
Okay. Who else said they work with agents? How are you using agents?
In ADM workflows,
Okay.
but I'm using subflows right now. I haven't fully committed the entire workflow. Some of it I can do myself. And
Give me a,
basic Python scripting and
okay.
then create the Excel file, and then from there I might be able to bring in an ADM workflow to finish the rest of the process.
Like here's a really common agentic background task that I use. Okay. Every morning for one of my companies, we have to put together, 9 KPIs. Okay. So monthly recurring revenue, actual monthly recurring revenue forecast, pipeline, actual pipeline forecast, campaigns, actual campaigns forecast, cash on hand, accounts receivable, and there's something I'm missing. And we have to put that into a row in a spreadsheet. We also have to look at all of our students, the subscriptions. So we have thousands of students, but each month we probably have 400 students renew their subscriptions. That is through the Stripe payment system. Somebody who pays $300 a month for their mastermind subscription, their subscription may come due on September 11th, right? So every day we may have 5 or 6 students whose payments have to come through. Some of those they might be declined for whatever reason, or somebody cancels. And there was a lot of manual couple of hours every morning going and collecting the data from everywhere because they're in various systems and putting that in a spreadsheet. Today, that takes about 11 seconds every single morning with an agent running the task itself. It inputs it into a Notion notebook, into a Notion database. Anybody here use Notion? Okay, so inputs into a Notion database. There is a trigger that then takes that row and puts it into a Google Sheet. Okay, and then from that Google Sheet, I go to Claude Agent and I just say, build my dashboard for today. And then the team gets on the call at 9 o'clock in the morning and we go through all the KPIs and I show them a brand new React dashboard built that morning by an agent. And it was all done in the back. It's about 80% accurate. So if I would just rely on the agent to do that for me, I'm going to show you some examples. If I relied on that agent to just do that for me, we would have 80% reliability, 80% fidelity in that data. Is that better or worse than a human being? It is better.
Worse.
No, it's better. What is it?
It's wrong.
No. What is the highest fidelity that can be achieved through manual data collection by human beings? So 60%, exactly. And that is the Japanese. In the United States, how reliable is data manually collected by Americans? Anybody know?
I can't remember. 40.
It's around 30. So if you have human beings manually collecting data, because we're talking about macro level. So if you take and you do a distribution across every employee in your company who uses spreadsheets, the best case scenario in the United States is 30% fidelity. That is, you can trust 30% of the data. Manually. In Japan, it's 60%. That's the world. That is the gold standard. The Japanese are the gold standard in manual data collection. Agents, about 80% reliable. When you combine an agent and a human being together, what's your reliability?
No, sorry, I had a question.
Yeah.
When you say manual, is it scripted stuff or just actual people going out looking at it and putting it out?
Yep, with human beings taking a value and putting it into a cell, putting it
I'm
in.
surprised it's 30% there. Okay.
Yeah, 30% reliability is the.
Okay.
Human beings are terrible
Yes.
at data collection. Absolutely terrible. Terrible. Look, I just cannot overstate how bad we suck at data collection. We're terrible.
Because the manual process.
It's because we don't care. It's,
They went pencils, like a horse jockey.
I'll deviate here for just a second. Predictive maintenance, right? Who here has worked in predictive maintenance? All right, so in predictive maintenance, or preventative maintenance, you will have a CMMS system that is designed for us to fix shit when it breaks. So when something breaks, we create a work order, a mechanic or an electrician goes out and they solve the problem. They diagnose it, they get the parts and they come out, they fix it, they finish the work order, they close the work order out, and we get up and running. And then the second piece of that is preventative maintenance, okay? And preventative maintenance is when the OEM that designs some asset says, you need to grease these bearings at N interval, you need to change these pulleys at Y interval. Okay, here are all the things that you need to do. So every week you would have a shutdown, and for 8 hours, you give everybody a bunch of PMs, and the mechanics would walk around the facility with their grease guns, and they would do these PMs. What percentage of PMs are pencil whipped in the United States? This comes from two different studies, one from McKinsey, one from Deloitte, and they were both backed up by MIT and Harvard, by behavioral scientists, who took a look at why is it the number was so bad. What percentage of PMs are pencil whipped? Does everybody know what a pencil whip is? You have a sheet that's got check boxes and lines. Somebody expects you to turn it in. You're supposed to do some task and then fill it out. But what you do is you just go down through and you just pencil whip it. What percentage are pencil whipped?
98%.
What's that?
98.
Not 90%. It's 90 on the button. 90 still. Human beings are terrible at data collection. Terrible. My team's a world-class team. I have a world-class team. And even this morning, we were talking about how bad my team sucks at data collection. Literally, we just had a conversation this morning in our own staff meeting. This morning. And we're world-class. We know that this is important. We know it's important. But you know who's really good at data collection? Agents. They're excellent at data collection. 80% reliability. And when you combine that with a human being supervising their work, what is our reliability now? It's 5 nines. 99.999% data fidelity. So if you want to know where the real impact in agentic AI will be, it's going to be the increase of data fidelity for decision making. That means better decisions. Okay, but the first thing I want to lay out for you is this, okay? AI and human beings work together. It's a lever. The analogy I like to use is this. Is anybody here anti-agentic AI? Is anyone in here like, I'm not going to use ChatGPT, young workers down, you know? Right, everybody's on board.
I mean, I'm a little on the fence.
Sure, go ahead. Is there a reason why?
Yeah, I'm concerned about energy usages, and I just don't know ready to prepare for that.
Nuclear solved your problem.
Well,
Nuclear solves your problem.
Is it ready? Nuclear ready to what?
Sure, absolutely. Yeah, we could power. First off, you could power the entire world with just Nevada and Utah with solar. Okay, the entire world with just Nevada and Utah with solar. Do you know that if you look at the macro data on nuclear power, there's a reason magically all these people on the left have jumped back onto the nuclear train. There's a reason that, by the way, you should look at the polling for those who are the environmentalists who fall on the left side of the spectrum. Okay, where are environmentalists when it stands with nuclear today? Well, it's a minus 60%. It's an improvement of 60% on positive towards nuclear energy. So the energy thing will be solved through nuclear. It's gonna happen through nuclear.
I don't disagree with that.
Yeah.
Right.
Any other objection?
I mean, it makes you feel kind of like stupid if I'm relying on it.
Don't rely on it. Supervisor. This is go ahead, Ron. You're good.
So challenge in education, of course, is that the education community fundamentally, because of a lot of the priors, has rejected the idea that AI should substitute for student thought and content, right? But just recently, there's been technology adopted where they're finally moving a little closer to accepting that mastery of domains, including project management, requires a modular toolkit that then AI contributes. Coming to the power thing, Thorium, Kirk Sorensen, and others have been trying to get Thorium done for a long time. It's a lot more environmentally friendly because Thorium sits much lower on the entropic chain, where you don't really have the nasty rats that you got to dispose of. Certainly GE's not happy about that because of their contract that has been locked in. But having said that, I think the idea of energy being constrained and until recently
Is a real current issue.
Yeah.
But it's not a future issue.
and certainly this administration has done a lot to make sure that indeed, much like the municipal utility districts, you can have your own nuclear district coupled with your data center. But however, I will say there is some forecast on the horizon to banks, which is that energy prices in Texas are going to skyrocket in about 2 years. So there is this inflationary pressure on the ordinary citizens of having their wealth consumed, much like our property taxes, because of these inflationary contributors. But having said that, back to the education dog leg that we took off on. Certainly, I'm seeing some adjustment where the credential on the wall has equity in alumni networks and all these other good things that come.
Certainly not in education.
Yeah.
Certainly not in what's
No, but not in that. Right. And that the real approach is to use project-based learning to drive critical thoughts. And by the way, portfolios you can bring to your employer, demonstrating your technical prowess to bring modern thought toolkits into the workplace.
Who here has a college degree? Who here went to university? Okay. Who here has a master's degree? Who here has a postgrad? So, doctor. Okay. All right. All right. I have a master's in education. So my background, I have an undergraduate degree in sociology. I have a BSE. I'm an electrical engineer, and I have a master's in education. Right. I wrote 2 theses when I was in grad school, and one of them was on constructivism. So in education. So what most of you don't know is that educators know that you're not learning the birds, the bees, and facts in school. What you are learning is how to think. Constructivism is creating scaffolds inside the human brain to teach you how to think and solve problems. Okay, we're no longer in the Hessian model or the Prussian model of education. We create frameworks inside your brain. We create constructs inside your brain to steer you in ways so that you think. You don't learn, you learn how to think in school. You don't learn facts. Okay. That's the reason that we don't cover physics or civics in school anymore. Everybody will say, well, no one talks about civics anymore. That isn't because the teachers' unions have decided they're communists and they don't want us to know where their country came from. Okay. And I'm a Republican. Okay. The reality is that we don't need to teach civics. You want to know why? Because of these things. Okay, this is all of human knowledge. All of you my age, we used to go to the library on the weekend. We used to carry around a 5x7 note card and write down all the books we were going to look at the public library on the weekend. No one does that. They go to their Android counterpart and they look up the answer. Go ahead.
So can generative AI can give you tacit knowledge?
Well, correct. So there's a problem here. Okay, generative AI is not going to happen. So general artificial intelligence is not going to happen. It isn't going to happen. So that is, when you say GAI, that is artificial intelligence replacing human intelligence. I'm going to be able to create an AI that will learn and innovate. There's so many limitations of AI that will not happen. And the limitation is emotion. However, can AI gain tacit knowledge? Yes, through experience. However, that experience doesn't involve emotion. It doesn't involve emotion. The thing that makes us uniquely human
is the fact that we feel. We feel and we couple our feelings with reasoning. Okay, and the way that we reason, you may think that you are black and white. You may think that you are X's and O's. You may think that you are zeros and ones, and you are not. You happen to be on a spectrum the way you think. Why is Elon a genius? Why is it that Elon Musk has achieved all the things he's achieved? Why Elon Musk? He is the perfect combination of intrinsic motivation, which we'll get to here in a second. Who's going to work, who's not going to work. It's those of you who are intrinsically motivated. Okay, you have the right requisite intelligence, and you're intrinsically motivated. That is, you don't need external forces to motivate you. There's a thing that wakes you up at 4:30 in the morning, and it's a thing on your to-do list that you absolutely cannot. You are not going to trade sleep for. I got to get to it. And the vast majority of people aren't motivated that way. I suspect nearly everyone in this room is motivated that way. How do I know that? Because the extrinsically motivated don't show up to a hotel on a Thursday night at 6 o'clock and not be paid to hear the conversation.
No, way the Cowboys.
Yeah, and when the Cowboys. That's why. That's commitment. So this has been studied certainly, and that drive and creativity coming into those moments is greater distributed in all societies, which means 20% of the population gets that trait. And that creates the natural peer and follower structure in society. So, there's a lot of people that, and that's why the needle strategy is effective, is you get the lever using that architecture to move a great many people by that effect, and Elon being a great example. He's a perfect combination of intelligence, intrinsic motivation, experience, and a sprinkle of emotion across his experience that leads him to make decisions in the way that he makes them. Okay, and there's a reason why. Here's the thing about AI. If all of you are bots, in AI agents, all of you in here, and all of you were trained on the collective experience of all humanity, which that's how agents are trained. They're trained on the things that all people write, and then there were external forces that filtered out the things that we didn't want them to be trained on, and there were external forces that decided the things that they would be trained on, which means that we end up with binodal distributions, okay, of the data. There are multiple means in the data, okay, which is where some of the hallucinations come from. Context limitation is another place hallucination comes from. All right. If I could ask the same question of all these unique human beings in here, I could come up with a problem, and we could say, we're going to problem solve this, and I want you to problem solve it together. Would you come up with a consensus answer, a group this size, so we're over 20, would a group of 20 come up with a consensus answer, or would we end up with more than one consensus, two separate groups at least, on two different sides of the solution to a problem? We would have bimodal consensus at a minimum with this group size. Okay, once you get a greater than 5, 6, 7, then you start getting people on this side, people on this side. Okay, that is a uniquely human trait. If I train all of you, and now all of you are AI agents, and I bring you the same problem, all of you will start in the exact same place with the solution, and the only thing that will change that in terms of your direction to give the answer to the problem is the external force, the human being interacting with you, the one controlling the context that you are working with. Does everybody, when I say context, everybody understands what I'm talking about, right? Yes, no, there's not. Okay, so all agents start with a baseline knowledge, what they were trained on. And then everything from the moment you start the chat with them is context. Context they use to add on to that which they were trained to make decisions, okay, to make recommendations. It's documents you put in, it's words you say to it, it is instructions you give.
That's the context.
In organizational dynamics, it's the problem around which resources orbit. And then depending on the scale, creates the gravity.
So what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about model context protocol here for a second. Is this familiar to everybody? What's up here? This is an API. This is the documentation for the API for a simple Bible application that I wrote using agents, using Cursor. Okay, this Bible application here, my goal of this.
Other stuff?
Yeah, so using Swagger and then and Fast API. So I wanted to build a simple Bible application where I read Proverbs every day. There's 31 chapters in Proverbs. There's generally 31 days in the month. So I read on the 5th day of the month, I read Proverbs chapter 5. Okay. I basically use 4 translations. I like to use more literal translations. So I've generally the New King James Version, King James Version, the ESV, and then one other translation, right? So each day, if you look at Bible apps, they're annoying. Bible apps have lots of features no one cares about, right? I care about the scripture and I care about understanding. It doesn't matter what religion you are. This is a problem and a solution. So I care about the scripture itself and I want to learn about the scripture. So I built a Bible application that allows me to do AI commentary, right? So today is September 4th. So chapter 4 of Proverbs. What I did was I wrote this application, okay, where I select AI commentary here. And so now what's happening in the lower right-hand corner, there I gave this AI agent context. There is a prompt in the background that says, you are J. Vernon McGee. Okay, anybody here know who J. Vernon McGee is? He's the Bible Bus guy. He was a pastor in LA in the 60s. He had a thing called Through the Bible, a radio show. Very famous guy. So I say, you are J. Vernon McGee. And what I want you to do is I want you to take the context, this chapter, Proverbs chapter 4, and I want you to do a few things. I want to say what chapter it is. I want you to tell me when it was written. I want you to tell me who wrote it, who's the audience. And then I want you to tell me what a Southern Baptist should take away from chapter 4, or from chapter 4 of Proverbs. So that's what's happened here. The context I gave the agent was chapter 4 and an instruction. Okay, so the book of Proverbs, chapter 4, Solomon. The audience is primarily his sons, broadly applicable to all seeking wisdom. The dispensation is Mosaic law, wisdom literature applicable across dispensations. It was written in 970 and 930 BC. The original language is Hebrew. And then it just basically tells me what I should learn from chapter 4. I have 3 possible agents I can work with. I can use Gemini, I can use ChatGPT, and I can use Claude. So if I go and I change, so if I go to my configuration and I switch my agent, right now I'm using Gemini, but if I switch it to Claude and I save it and I go back here and I do the exact same thing, okay, the exact same instruction. Okay, it's not doing Gemini anymore. Now it's doing Claude. 2 agents, totally different, both artificial intelligence, exact same prompt, exact same context. And I get different answers. His sons, and by extension, all who seeking wisdom. But you'll notice small changes. Small changes.
You also get small changes when you refresh and ask for agent.
Correct. Why? Why is that?
Because of all the other inputs coming into the agent.
No. Close. Later on, yes.
I just think it's generative, right? We're talking about large language models, generative AI. So you typically don't get the exact same precision answer every time. You know, you prompt.
How does a large language model work?
Statistical.
Yeah. It uses statistics to do what?
Predict the next word.
Predict the next word.
Yeah.
Predict the next word.
Absolutely floating point errors of the
There you go. Right there. Right there. So it out to 9, 10, 11, 12, 15 decimal points. Okay. When the prediction for the next word, when I have 100 possibilities and all of them are equal out to the 12th decimal, and it's the 13th decimal that's the change. Okay.
It also runs on different hardware.
Correct. Right. So is that
time call too.
Is that something reliable? Is an agent that behaves in that manner? Is that an agent that could replace you?
Maybe come on around the house, move around and size.
There's an area of SQL too, right?
Yeah, you have a call center.
Yeah, they found foundation computation first. As you develop the conversation, the context continues to grow. That's and so therefore, but coming back to replacement, that's why MCP obviously is.
So the next thing that I did was I put in, this is before I put the MCP server. So the next thing that I did was I put in the ability to interact. So I put in an MCP server and I said, well, now what I really want to know is like, what notes have I written? So what notes have I written in chapter 4? So I don't know if I have any notes. Well, let's see. I'm going to go ahead and ask this agent, have I saved any notes or bookmarks in chapter 4? Hopefully I have. So what's happening right now is the agent is using an MCP server to say, go get notes where book is Proverbs and chapter is 4. And then it's returning back to the agent. And then the agent is going to say, no, you have not saved any notes for chapter 4. But what I will do is I'll say this. Save a note for chapter 4. Pick a verse that's important. Would I ever do this? Of course not. I would never ask an AI agent to save a note for me. But pick a verse that's important and create a note. What we'll see is I can't do that because this is an agent that's not connected to the MCP server. Claude is connected to the MCP server. So it can't save the agent. All this is a chat bot that I pass a single context into, what I wrote into this field here. But now what I'm going to do is what I've done is I've built an MCP server here. So this is not the MCP server. This is the RESTful API that we use to interact with the backend. And the backend is just Postgres, okay? So what I did was I wrote an MCP server that's for the agent. And it gives the agent to interact and the ability to interact with all these methods. So for those of you who don't know software, if you're not into software at all, software basically has 3 components. It has a back end where master data is, the structure, what is our application, and also where do we save all the stuff? If you enter in a username and a password, it gets stored in a backend, okay? The middle layer is the API. It's the application programming interface. And then most of the time they look like this. And then the top layer is the UI. So you'll have a little piece on the side where the software itself is working with the API to manipulate the backend all by itself. And then the UI does the same thing through the API. What we've done with Model Context Protocol is what's happening in industry right now. There's APIs all over manufacturing facilities. What's really happening right now is they're going through it for every method in the API. So get Bible translations. They are creating an equivalent MCP tool that the agent can interact with. So the agent goes to a tool called Get Translations, and that Get Translations actually interacts with this Get API version 1 Bible translations. So there's a one-to-one relationship between API method and MCP tool. MCP tool is the method the agent uses. This API method is the method that we use as human beings, the UI uses, and the software uses. We are bolting agents right now. You are seeing prolific development of Model Context Protocol servers all over the world because it is so easy to adopt. It's literally go to the API and tell an agent to build an MCP server with one tool for every method. The agent builds its own tool to interact with the software. And then all I have to do is interact with the agent. So now what I'm going to do, I have an MCP server running, and so we've got Claude. So this is Claude Desktop. So I have Claude Desktop running on my machine. I'm sorry you guys can't see this, but I don't know if can I zoom in on this? Oh, I can. See, All right, so if I go down here to my max plan and I go to my settings, and I go into extensions, or I go into connectors, you'll see that we have two MCP, these are the MCP servers I'm connected to that Claude supports. Google Drive, so I can ask Claude anything about my Google Drive. I can ask Claude anything about my Gmail, what you were doing. Look at my calendar, look at my emails, tell me what I should do first thing tomorrow morning. That's a really common one. Google Calendar, my GitHub, Notion, and Stripe. Our payment system for 4.0 solutions uses Stripe. It's a Stripe payment system. But I've also built two MCP servers, one called Bible Project and one called UNS Studio. The reason I'm using Bible Project for my illustration here to start before I go to the actual manufacturing facility is because I want you to see the relationship between the two. Yeah.
So this is interesting. So an MCP server that you have here, is it really just a function as a connector?
It's literally running, the MCP server is literally running, that's Cursor. I use Cursor from most of my development. The MCP server is actually running here in the console.
And it connects to your.
And I went to Claude desktop JSON configuration, and in there I can add a manual connection to an MCP server I have running on my local host.
Sounds like a low-hanging fruit that you could just take these agents and just leverage the whole.
Oh, I'm going to blow your fucking mind here in 10 minutes. I mean,
This is the first step.
yeah, I'll blow your mind. What I'm going to show you will make you go, holy shit.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, trust me, what I'm going to show you will boggle the mind. Okay. This is super low hanging fruit, what I've done here.
So fundamentally, at an architectural level, would you say that MCP just makes it easier to federate?
Oh, MCP makes federation possible, is what I would argue. But agents,
That's middleware.
but it's essentially middle. Yeah, it is the API for agents. Now, if I go into Claude, if you guys are using Claude Desktop, when I gave that speech in April, for you must know MCP, you must know MCP, you must know MCP. There were 4 connectors in Claude Desktop. That was in April. 4 MCP servers that you could connect to automatically. Okay, this is the web connections, MCP servers. So Asana, Atlassian, Box, there are MCP servers popping up everywhere. Okay, that's just the web, and then these are the desktop. So I can browse my Mac operating system, I can create files, I can delete files, I can use my agent to do all the work on my desktop that I wanted to. I don't have to go and look for a document, for example. So how many times are those who use a Mac, how many times do you hit Command spacebar and then type in the name of the document to try to go find that document? I don't do that. I tell Claude to go find the document for me. And the agent looked at all my documents, looked at my email, looked at my calendar, looked at my notes in Notion, and looked at the notes that were local on my MacBook and gave me a report. Here's what you promised. And you promised that you would do this, and you contacted Mike on this day, and you contacted Eric Peary on this day, et cetera, et cetera. So, and now I guarantee no one in here is doing that. You will. Some of you are further along, and some of you have not even started yet. Okay? And I think the question that most people are going to have is, where do I start? How do I even get started? Okay? Well, the first question you should ask yourself is, are you intrinsically motivated? Because if you're not intrinsically motivated, don't waste your time. Because you're going to be doing like YouTube content and painting and sculptures and stuff. That's what you're going to say. We'll talk about that in a second. All right, so what I'm going to do is, what I want to do is say, I want to ask the agent, what tools are available to you in the Bible application MCP server. So the agent is now, you can't read that, but the agent now is looking at the MCP server, and it's looking for the list of tools, and now it's saying what it can do. And it's saying, okay, I can get a list of all the Bible books. I can get specific Bible chapters and translation options. I can get specific Bible verses with translation options. And down here at the notes, I can get all the notes. I can update existing notes. I can delete. I'm going to ask this. Can you create a new note? can you create a new note in for Proverbs chapter 4? And the answer is going to be yes. And I'm going to say, create that note for me. Yes. So what I'm going to do is say, let's go back to our Bible.
I gave you the example, so you could have just said yes right there.
Let's do Proverbs. Oh, let's do 4:1. Which one does it want to do?
Well, it says, for example,
Let's do
because usually it'll suggest something.
analyze Proverbs 4:1 and create an appropriate note. The reason I'm doing this is because this is not an MCP server someone else built. It's an application I wrote. I wrote the Bible app completely from scratch. No one else has worked on it. Anyone knows it's 160,000 lines of code. 760,000 divided by 750. How long should it have taken me? Long time. Long time. You know how long it took me? I wrote the entire thing in 4 days. The entire thing, start to finish, in 4 days. I'm going to show you UNS Studio, which is 6.5 million lines of code. It's basically it's a IIoT platform. I wrote it all by myself, completely, just with agents. It's 6.5 million lines of code. Those are for the software piece in here while this is running. People who write software are no longer valuable for writing software. It's zero value in writing code. All the value is in supervising the writing of the code. It's the ability to manage and supervise agents writing code. Yeah.
Technical perspective or from a knowledge perspective?
From a well, it starts knowledge, then it becomes technical. There's a limitation here. There's a risk. There's a real risk. If our technical capabilities do not advance to the point when all the people who know how to write code are dead, and they're the ones who supervise all the writing of code. If writing code is not valuable anymore, how do you teach more people to write code? You don't. Okay, people won't write code, agents will write code. So all the people who know how to write code will eventually die. And if they're the ones who know how to supervise the writing of code, what do you fill in the gap? And the answer is technological.
Where does this take us in explainability and observability?
Correct. Here's the, I want to, while this is, did it do our note? Yes. So what it's doing, you guys can't see this, but it says, I'm analyzing Proverbs 4:1 for you to create an appropriate note. Let me first get the text, and it got the Bible verse. Then it said, let me try formatting, get the Bible verse, it seems there's an issue with the API server. So I'll create the note without getting the verse. I've successfully created a comprehensive note for Proverbs 4:1. Here's what I analyzed. The verse serves as an opening call to attention, typically reading, listen, my sons, to a father's instruction, pay attention, blah, blah. And if I go here, I go, do I have any new notes? Hopefully what we get is an answer, yes, we do. Otherwise there was some problem with the backend. Where is AI taking us? I said this before, if you guys heard me talk about Agentic AI, or not AI, but I talked about ChatGPT before. No, it didn't know I was asking chapter 4. Half of the people in this world will be unemployable. That's the reality. Literally, half the people will become unemployable. Like it's not that we're going to replace. Are some people's jobs going to be replaced with AI? Yes. Technical writers, like if you're into documentation, you're screwed. I mean, I'll tell you right now, because a human being doesn't write better documents than agents do. Like if you want to know which jobs are going to stick around, it's the jobs that human beings, if they have enough time, are better at than agents. No human being writes a better technical document than an agent does.
not the best technical writer in the world. Never mind that the agents write documentation faster. Even if you take that piece out, the quality of the document is the best technical writer, human technical writer in the world is not better than the worst agentic technical writer in the world. So technical writers, but software developers are the best software developers in the world, better software developers than the best agentic software developers? Absolutely. Absolutely. Because you want to know, agents are not trained on agents are trained on the mean, they're not trained on 2 standard deviations above the mean. And the best software developers in the world, they are human beings who occupy 2s north of the mean in terms of capability. Okay, so if you're wondering which jobs are going to be around, you just have to ask yourself the one question. Is an agent better at the best human being at this thing? The selective and evolutionary pressure is the same. Mastery. This has always been, and modern tools help elevate that.
But even the best software developers isn't going to code from scratch. Even those top people aren't going to code from scratch.
And musicians don't play from scratch either.
I mean, that's what you're thinking.
I spoil. Who here knows who Rick Beato is? Anybody know who Rick Beato is? Okay. So Rick Beato is a big YouTuber. He's from upstate New York. Shout out upstate New York. He was a music professor at Ithaca College. Okay. Rick, he's the guy who, did you guys see this CBS Saturday? You guys, all right. 2 weeks ago, Rick Beato was giving an interview with CBS News on CBS Saturday. And the reason why was because Rick has a huge following on YouTube. And he was talking about how Agentic AI, there are artists now that you are listening to on Spotify that you don't know don't even exist. They're not human beings. They're agents. Okay? So what he did was he created a new indie artist named Sadie Winters. You can look her up. Okay? Listen to this song. In 4 minutes, start to finish, he created the artist, he wrote the lyrics, and then the first song was created. You can look it up. Sadie Winters, and I don't remember the name of the song, there's only one of them. And then they played the song and they recorded his reaction. He was hearing the song for the very first time with the report. Okay. And he was blown away at how beautiful the song is. And it is a beautiful song. But if you listen to the music, start to finish, there are real imperfections in the arrangement of the song. Those who are musically inclined, I'm a drummer, okay? So those who are musically inclined can hear the imperfections. And we're not talking Led Zeppelin imperfections in the 1970s where they went from, they would vacillate from 118 to 121 beats a minute in the middle of the song. We're not talking about speeding up the riff and slowing down the riff to feel the emotion of a song in the 70s. We're talking about fundamental flaws that only the most trained ear is going to hear. Okay, the real risk with AI, or the real opportunity for humanity, is in all the things that agents are never going to be able to do well, and art is one of them. Entertainment is another. And because they have emotional content. Correct. Why is it that artists are the most fucked up people? Why do they kill each other? Why do they kill themselves so much? Well, because the art that they produce is a manifestation of their pain and experience. Agents don't do that. AI doesn't do that. The real opportunity with AI, I'm getting into the industry one. Where am I at in time? All right, good.
You're on Walker time.
I'm gonna try and be done in 15 minutes. Try to be done in 15 minutes. The real opportunity, and I want to answer any questions you guys might have. Why is it that we have, I've said this before and I'll say it again. In January of 24, or whenever the last time I spoke, we talked about this topic, just not agents, because MCP didn't exist. Okay. Why is it we have haves and have-nots in this world? No, it's a very simple answer. Why is it you have homeless? Why is it you have people who have abundance? And why is it you have people who have nothing?
It's a really simple one. Think about it. It's a simple answer.
It's structural.
Well, structures are always reflective of realities. What's the reality?
So,
Is there enough water? Is there enough water for all people on Earth? Yes or no?
it's a distribution problem.
Okay. Today, is there enough water for all people on Earth? Yes. In 1950, was there enough water? Could we actually get water to all the people we needed to get water to in 1950 on Earth? Why? Because it was technological limitation, right? We could moving, we had not advanced enough where we could move them. Is there enough resources to go around for all human beings on Earth? 8 million. No, there's not. There's still scarcity. There's still scarcity. Okay? The reason you have haves and have-nots is that in order for us to advance as a society, as a society, to get to the point where we have enough resources for everyone, we have to incentivize those who can advance us to do it. And so we create economic systems that incentivize, by the way,
There's no scarcity in the US.
So, but he's pointing to the dynamism of scarcity, which, by the way, in the United States reached 5-to-1 productivity,
yes.
capital ratio.
There's no scarcity in the US.
So compared to muted,
Why do we have homeless?
It's no scarcity.
No. I'm talking on a global level.
it's not just
I'm talking about on a global level. We have scarcity on a global level. But why do we have homeless in the United States?
Reagan.
We have homeless in the reason we have scarcity in the United, why we have homeless in the United States, by the way, I am a sociologist, so first off, 6 out of every 10 homeless people you interview, I mean, this study's been done 30 times. 6 in 10 choose to be homeless. So that's one problem. One problem is that 6 in 10 they believe homelessness is freedom. Okay, so yes, you did. Do not take my word for it. Just go, please. Do not take my word for it. But what I do want you to do is try to prove me wrong. I do want you to do that. So you'll go look it up, and in turn, you'll.
What percentage of mental illness?
80%.
It's not 60%. So 80%. The two are mutually exclusive.
Correct. They're not mutually exclusive. But I'm talking about the potential of AI. Okay, potential of AI. AI, for the first time in human history, gives us the ability, the potential, to create enough resources for all of us to go around. For the very first, and the reason why, go ahead.
In New York City, in the boroughs, they're going to use AI as black box technology for distributing the budget for fire departments, police, etc. Nobody at the political table wanted that,
Right.
Because the political economy could not play out.
Yes.
Because why? The political economy could not play out. Okay, meaning my ability to influence you,
Parnell's
my
iron law.
ability to get enough whiskey in everybody, get them to control what I want.
Parnell's iron law.
And so, in Ray's work in political economy, and he's, our federal economist here in Texas, and what he explained to me is that gerrymandering removed and created a rather downward trend in whiskey sales, because the people who gerrymandered their districts no longer negotiate.
When do you? Who is it who cares? Who is it who cares about their neighbor? This is a nasty truth in sociological survey. No, what is the archetype? What is the type of human being who cares about their neighbor? Truly cares. Truly cares. I'm not talking about says they care. I mean, truly cares. And how do we measure care? It's willingness to sacrifice. So what is love? Love is deep affection. What is being in love? It's a willingness to sacrifice for that affection. Okay. So how do we know that you care about your neighbor? It is measured in your willingness to sacrifice for your neighbor. Okay. Just saying you care is irrelevant. We know that 80% of people are going to say, I care, because all of you want to be accepted by everyone else in the room. So therefore you have an incentive to say, I really care, even if I don't really give a fucking shit, and I would totally stab you in the back and steal your job if I could, and sleep with your wife, or sleep with your husband, which people do all the time. And if you cared about your neighbors, you wouldn't actually do that. Who cares about their neighbor? David Brooks told you this. David Brooks told us all.
The 4 pillars.
Right. So David Brooks wrote in a book called The Second Mountain. Okay, he wrote a book called The Second Mountain. Those of us who care about our neighbors are it's those of us who are climbing our second mountain. We climb 2 mountains. Mountain 1, take care of me. Mountain 2, take care of everybody else. And in the process of taking care of me, we learn what it is that really matters. And it's impact. It's impact on our neighbors. You know, my mom got murdered when I was 7, so I learned that lesson very young. I got lucky.
So, yeah, Four Horizons a big everything.
Yes.
Survival success.
This is why we need other people.
Yes, yeah, transcendence. Transcendence is the idea of the aspiration of the ultimate being, and this shapes behavior. And to your point, part of that is in the mythological space is the assignment of future value based on today's action. Paul said to put your treasures up in heaven. This idea of sacrifice is testimony to your point, right? About the operational beliefs. This comes to this is complicated. The probabilistic field and the axis of belief playing out on the arc of theology. Yeah. Yes. And this ultimately is how humans describe and think about their movement towards their destiny in mythological space.
There's 2 things I want everyone to take away from you. Okay, when you walk away, what are the money pieces? Okay. Yes, there's a lesson here on what is MCP and how are people using it. Okay, and I want to show you how it's being used in industry right now, and it barely scratches the surface. But for those of you who work in this field, those of you who work in industry and work with manufacturers, you need to understand what it is manufacturers are doing right now with Agentic AI using MCP, and I'm going to show you that here. Okay, and hint, it's in the acceleration of the conversion of data into information to make decisions. Okay, it's the acceleration of that conversion. That's really where it's being leveraged. Okay, but there's 2 philosophical things I want you to take away. And the reason I want you to take these things away is because in all the speeches that I've given this year, in all the conversations I've had after the speeches, there's 2 resounding themes that keep walking on. Fear, and uncertainty, right? The amount of fear around AI is overwhelming. And I'm not afraid. I am not afraid at all. In fact, all I see is opportunity. And it is not because I'm really good with it. I see opportunity for humanity. AI makes good people great people. It makes the great software developer the world-class software developer. It's just like, why do we get married? As I can only speak as a man. But why does a man get married? If you're being honest with yourself.
Yes.
Every guy will say the same thing. Every guy will say the same thing. Why did I marry her and I didn't marry her? But the ex-girlfriend always comes along and says, why did you marry her? Why'd you marry her? And the answer is always the same. It's not because I love her, okay? It's because she makes me a better man. If we're being honest with ourselves, she adds to my life. She makes me who I am. The right woman will make a good man a great man, make a great man Superman. The dynamic with AI and humanity is exactly the same. So all I see is opportunity. So there's nothing to fear. Like the world is not going to be taken over by AI bots. Okay, and the reason why is because human beings aren't allowed that to happen. Okay, the pendulum never swings too far in one direction. Those of us, I'm in my 50s, those of us who have lived a long time understand it. It never goes too far. Those of you who were alive in the 60s know that the 60s were much worse than they are now. Okay, everyone really, really thought that we were on the verge of a nuclear apocalypse and societal collapse in the 60s. Everyone really, really thought. And we weren't.
But there's some aspect of it, it's weaponization of it. It's a race, right? So there's always going to be a race. Who's ahead? And it can be used for bad things too. So
Which brings me to my
how it's used, right?
Which brings me to my second point. Okay, and that's this. There's a very unique reality. I was talking to Ron about this. There's a phenomenon, everybody knows Moore's law, right? Okay, so Moore's law actually applies in sociological functions as well. So like the industrial revolutions, You know, you go printing press, and then you go steam engine, and you go assembly line, and then you go PLC, and then you go TCP/IP, and then you go Agentic AI, you know, ChatGPT in 2023. Each industrial revolution takes half as long. So it splits in half, okay? Except from 5 to 6. So we're in the 5th right now, starting with ChatGPT in November of 2022. It will not be 5 years when the 6th starts. And it'll be the first time that it doesn't hack. Why? AI is not the limiting factor. What's the limiting factor? It's assimilation. It's human beings. We are the limiting factor. We can only.
We're really good. We're really good at adapting.
I'm you know, my gifts in this world are I can take complex things and I can explain them in a way that the layperson can understand. I know which parts to leave out, and I know which parts to talk about, and I just get lucky doing it. But you know, my gift, I have a super short learning curve. My learning curve has always been literally an 80-degree angle. It's not an S curve. And all the work I've done, 1,800 man hours in working with agents, the limitations are glaring. And they're not technological. They're in our ability to adapt to the agents. And there aren't superhuman beings out there who are operating at the speed of light. You know, those of you who follow industry, if you follow, like, you read tech publications and all that kind of stuff right now, you will notice, if you're like on LinkedIn, you will notice there has not been a major announcement for any software vendor in like 4 months. In fact, everyone's gone quiet. Everyone's gone quiet. Go look at Google. Go on Google, look at search trends. Everyone's gone quiet. Why? Well, why is it all the software and hardware vendors we work with aren't coming out with major announcements? And they haven't for 4 months. And that just happens to coincide when the adoption of MCP happened en masse, which was really enabling.
A lot of their products are
In development, they're trying to harness it all.
So one of the things that I do, I get hired by OEMs. You know, this is part of what Stephanie mostly sells. OEMs hire me to come in and review their go-to-market strategy, and then review the architecture of their software,
Ripping it up.
and no one knows what to do.
Yeah.
No one knows what to do.
Like Apple.
or you're like some bad players and you're trying to find a way to monetize.
Take 3 steps back from yourself and look at how you leverage AI. And ask yourself, how has it changed in a year? Just ask yourself that. How drastic has it really changed? The answer is, it hasn't after the initial learning curve.
The real chasm is in understanding generative value.
Yes.
And generative value architectures that are complementary to the rather binary appetites of corporations. And so that's your big challenge. And I've been intercepting people who are doing theoretical design. They're very frustrated by Sam.
Oh, by the way, I think Sam Altman's irrelevant. I think in my personal opinion, is that Altman is irrelevant. Sam Altman is not the visionary who will lead us to the future.
So you're right about
There's
that.
a reason he's called Scam on.
Say it again.
There's a reason he's called Scam on.
Yeah. Sam is this. I don't want to say snake oil.
Yes. So the LLM is a mirage. Yes. And ultimately, this is what Sam continues to promote. I'm heading to New York to speak against this in October, but not in a way that is antagonistic or ranting. If you want to steer the great ship, you have to harness the confluence of economic and technological windmills and stop screaming into the wind and put that wind in your sails and steer your ship. That's the thing that a lot of
And where does that wind come from? It comes from the vector drawn. That is the course that we set ourselves on. Is a function of The direction we go is toward the solution to problems. And so in order to plot a course, we must always start with the problem and work our way back to the solution. Okay, and right now we are in a world where very few people are asking themselves, what problem should we be solving? What problem should we solve?
So great corporations, great societies, great communities are built on a couple of things: social tapestry in the form of alliances and rivalries. And of course, the idea of what drives well-informed localization factors called empathy and advocacy. Empathy is listening for great requirements, and advocacy is built in design. And so when we localize that in our own culture, our own language, our own geos, this is what gives us comparative and competitive advantage. The efficiencies of that, which we use the binaries for, and the effectiveness of it is you cannot eliminate human touch, ideation, and adaptability in those moments. The ability, in my teaching, on the economic moment of decision and the patterns of resources used to stamp the blueprint, which is highly variable in a probabilistic economy driven by humans, right? And that's the magic moment of having somebody at the front desk who sees that you just came from the airport, you're dragging in, you're barely holding your bags up. It says, sir, can you get somebody to carry those for you? Would you like a bottle of champagne since your room? These are the magic moments of empathy that exist in the continuum of care through which humans navigate irreconcilable complexity and uncertainty, looking for, let's just call it, hospitality as the remedy to stabilize at that moment. You'll never do away with it because of the durability of the need of humans who are navigating all of that.
And here's when human beings, here's when all of humanity excels. Okay? It's during the Civil War. It's during the American Revolution. It's during World War II. It is during all the times post 9/11. Everybody who lived through 9/11, the greatest 7 days of your life as an American were the 7 days after 9/11. The only time in my life, my 51 years, where everyone was on the same team. Every neighbor, everyone's politics, everything went out the window for about 7 days. Okay? Humanity excels when we have collective problems to solve. You want to know where we don't excel? When we don't have problems to solve. And so the uncertainty that we have, right? You know, if any of you who are wealthy, right, who grew up working class and made a lot of money, and then you raised kids who didn't appreciate being working class and they were given everything, what's the first thing all those kids have when they're 17, 18, 19 years old? They're disaffected. They're lost. They're aimless. And the reason why is because we as human beings need challenges. We need problems to solve. Yeah.
So this is going to be the reason, right? If it makes everything really easy, gives us the abundance of everything, we're all just going to be bored. People are just like, we're going to have no motivation to do anything. So how do you resolve that?
Except it doesn't. Except the premise, if it makes everything easy and it creates abundance. I didn't say it create abundance. What I said is that we are at a point technologically right now where all of humanity, everything that we've been doing over the course of human history has brought us to this moment. AI is trained on the collective knowledge of every single one of us. It is all of ours. It is not OpenAI's. It is not X's. It is not Meta's. It is humanity's.
Let me observe a couple other factors. My daughter just came back from Australia, quite different socially. And the dynamism there, and actually even fulfilling their purposes, like to enable boxes. And these guys are highly vertically integrated. Okay, it's the vertical dependency versus the horizontal fabric. And I believe it was, I don't know if it was Tussaud, whoever the French philosopher economist that came to study civic institutions, right? And what he said was, man, America's great. But what makes them great is the VFW and the Chamber of Commerce and all these civic institutions that the epitome of citizen engagement. Okay, and the fabric is back in those days of validating somebody's, let's say, reputation, right? So those are the things he observed. And to your ask about, will AI destroy the very dynamism that created our society? And I say it depends.
I say that what it is the catalyst that society will push it back against to embrace that which makes societies wonderful. That it is you brought up Reagan. The beauty of the 90s was a response to the shortcomings of Reagan in the 80s. And part of what makes the Western societies, not just the United States, but part of what makes Western societies so dynamic is our ability to collectively respond to the things that societies do wrong.
Well, the emergence of Western philosophy, the Westphalian doctrine, all the other things that said boundaries should be respected, sovereignty is a great idea, and self-regulation actually makes sense.
So let's talk about, I'm going to take 2 minutes to show you how it is it's actually being used. So we've talked about the potential of AI, and we've talked about all the risks and the beauties and the rewards. Here's how it's actually being used. This is a manufacturing facility. This is real data. Okay, this is a flexible packager based in Dallas. So manufacturers and they have data infrastructures. They connect to equipment, they collect data, and they put it, this is a unified namespace, so it's fantastically organized. We're looking at a production line, and we're looking at a manufacturing execution system with KPI calculations like OEE. Okay? This tool right here is called UNS Studio, which is a tool that I developed. So it's a product I built using agents. This is the one that's got 5-6 million lines of code in it. It is connected to that data infrastructure. So I can navigate. What I've done is I've limited the data. Sorry, it's too small. But basically, Press 103 with the production line is here. There's an MCP server running on UNS Studio. So agents have access to the data now. And so here's how the data is actually being used. This is how MCP and agents are being leveraged in industry right now. In UNS Studio, look at Press 103 and give me a status update. And I showed you guys this when I presented last time. So this is the entry point. Okay, so the agent is now connected to an MCP server, and it has a list of tools. It can go get a topic, it can get a payload, it can look at history, but it can also learn from the semantic hierarchy of this data. Enterprise area, our enterprise site area line cell, which is ISA 95 part 2, and it's going and it's looking at all the payloads and it's going, look, Press 103 status update. Here's the current status of Press 103 at the Dallas location. It's currently stopped. The running status is false. Line speed is 0. Blah blah blah. But here's how agents are really being leveraged right now. Build me an operator dashboard in React. Include all important data and variables in the dashboard namespace, and include anything else you think an operator would care about. And now you just go get a cup of coffee and you give it 2 minutes to go ahead and write all the code. The dashboard will be built as an artifact. You publish the artifact, and then the operator uses that visualization. And what I'm going to do in 2 minutes here is I'm going to do 2 man weeks of work for that dashboard in 2 minutes using an agent. And then I can work with the agent to reconstruct the visualization. So what's the potential there? What is the potential in manufacturing facilities? And where do I see things actually happen? Right now, it takes 2 minutes to write this dashboard. And the reason it takes 2 minutes is a technological limitation. It's compute power and it's energy. Okay? Those will not be bottlenecks forever. There's going to come a time, there's going to come a moment where all I'm going to have is a JSON instruction, and a single event will be fired where the agent will build the visualization from scratch, from the definition, and you won't know the difference. You will not know
that it isn't a compiled visualization that someone wrote 3 years ago that we keep calling every single time we open that window. They are going to be built, our vision, what we see will be built on the fly by AI. Your apps in your phone will not be compiled code. They will be built on the fly in milliseconds from a definition. This is our dashboard. Now what I do is I say, from this dashboard, build me a JSON definition that describes how an agent should build it in the future. And it'll take this code, which is the raw React, any of you who write React, and it's going to build a definition, and that definition will be stored in a namespace. And when you want to visualize that, you will navigate to a space, you will click on the definition, the agent will generate the visualization the moment you click on it. It will not call these objects that are stored and installed somewhere. They will be built on the fly. When you go to send a text message, you're not going to open iMessage as an app. You are going to click on a definition that will be where the application will be generated on the fly. The DevOps cycle, how we software development life cycle, we have a release, and then we collect information and write a bunch of code, and then we test it and put it through QA, and then we do another release. Those days are going to be gone. That's where we're headed. But what are manufacturers doing today? They're doing this simple, stupid thing. That's where we are. But the potential is way, way, way. Now, why is it we're here? The limitations of human beings. We're the limiting factor.
I was gonna
Go
say
ahead.
something. 3 minutes.
Yeah. All right, go ahead. Yeah.
I've been in the automotive industry for 8 years, and there's so much data in the vehicles, and I've been in the leading edge of software-defined vehicles and all the data and AI and everything's going on there. But the big killer are the actual car manufacturers, right? The industry does not move that fast.
Yeah, exactly.
This is the thing you're going to hit the resistance because industries cannot adopt this technology; they don't trust it enough. How do you get over that hump? Because there's so many things that we know we can do, but getting it into these manufacturers, they're not going to get in there in 10 years probably.
Well, they won't, like, for example, I mean, no one wants to do this. Like, Toyota, for example, knows that they're not going to be a car. And Toyota has Toyota AI Ventures. They have a new CEO from a few years ago. They have a 12-year plan, and they won't make cars anymore. I mean, and that's known at Toyota. They are going to be in the AI business. Toyota AI Ventures, you can look it up for yourself. They are not.
I think that's the answer. They're not going to be.
They're not going to manufacture trucks. Ford will manufacture trucks and will never manufacture a car ever again. That's an absolute empirical certainty, and it's because Jim Farley told us 2 years ago. Ford sold their soul to Bosch. They sold the data to Bosch. Bosch owns the data inside the control modules. Without that data, they cannot compete with Tesla. Don't trust me. Go watch the podcast. He says it. We're not even going to try and catch it. We can't. That's why they don't. Bosch owns the sensors.
Right? They don't have ownership like a vertical, right? They're just putting boxes together and wiring them up. That's the problem. The industry is going to go away.
But Tesla, here's the interesting thing. Tesla, who is the leader, whether you like Elon or not, they are. I mean, there's just anybody who's owned a Tesla will tell you, holy shit, I spend a quarter on this car that I spend on any of my internal combustion cars. I just drove 60,000 miles. The only thing I did was every time I charged it cost me $12 and I only put tires on it. And then I went and divided what I spent on that car by every mile I drove. And oh my goodness, I'm spending 1/6 the cost to drive this vehicle. Basic math. That's how our economy works. Tesla's not even a car company. They're a data company. Tesla doesn't give a shit about the car. They don't give a shit about the car at all. It's the data. Data is the commodity. So where is manufacturing going? And I would love to tell you that I knew. I can tell you where I think it's going.
And the answer is contract manufacturing. Manufacturers will not get bigger, they'll get smaller. We will become hyper specialized in industry. So all the processes you see in a manufacturing facility today, from back door to front door, those will be many facilities. Not all. Specialists at each process. That's what we're looking for. All right, any other questions? By the way, here's our definition. And it looks like maybe 700 lines. All that while I was blabbing. All right. Yeah, go ahead.
I've got an existing application that's been written over years.
Yep.
So I'm just gonna put it in there and say turn this into something else, or can I get it to add features or?
Yeah, it's a little, the short answer is yes. How do you write software the way I've been writing it? The answer is you have to create a scaffold, a framework for the agents to work efficiently, because we have context limitations. There's only 270,000 tokens that I pay for max plans. That's why it costs me so much. So I have 270,000 tokens of data that can go into any context window. Okay, the average piece of software is millions and millions and millions of tokens of context. You can't just dump a program into an agent. What you have to do is you have to scaffold steps for how the agent will go run through the code base. So for example, when it comes to documentation, I don't write any of my own documentation. What I have is an entry point in the root of my software code. It is a definition. It's a documentation design document that sits in the root. And then there's an instruction to the agent that says, every time you change a line of code, the next thing you will do when you are done, you will read that document, and then you will go to each module, you will read the document inside that module, and you will update all of the documentation. It all happens as a background task. But there's a scaffold that does that, because we are limited to, I'm limited to 270,000 tokens in any context window. So the short answer to your question is this: download Cursor, take your source code, open your source code with Cursor, and then ask the agent on the right-hand side, review my application and tell me what it does. And then you will get your very first introduction into what agents can and can't do. Okay.
So then I could say, and I want to do this also.
Correct.
And it'll go in there and gen up.
You will say, what are the steps that you would go through? Give me the steps that you would go through in order to develop this new feature. I mean, even to the point, I'm integrated through GitHub command line. I don't even open any of my own issues. The agent does that. It generates every issue. It generates every task. It does all the documentation, everything. Think of yourself as an orchestrator. I'm a conductor. And that's the mindset shift.
I like it.
Okay.
Walker, is this a good way to wrap it up?
One more right here, and then we'll do the intros. Okay.
I have a question.
Sure.
All these are white.
Say that again?
All these are white.
Oh, don't use that. Don't use that.
I know what I'm saying. So there are some articles written by CEO that their production quality code which got broken. And even MIT also released the says like
That's the problem. That's a problem with the orchestrator, not the agent.
Yep. But how come that 90% of projects, like all of it fail? Looks like
Because the mindset shift I just told him, they're not adopted. So one of the things you have to think is how is it that I approach writing software needs to change. So I have to abandon that which I know about writing software. I have to take a step back and I have to ask myself, who's working for me now? And how do I create the construct for them to be successful? You want to know what most people try to do with agents? There's a great, if you guys want, if you're married and you want to stay married, there's a really good piece of advice to anybody. Never expect someone else to be you. Ever. So when you delegate, always expect the person you're delegating to only be able to do it 70% as well as you. Okay? Agents are not you. You are a resource for an agent. And so the reason those projects are failing, I've reviewed many of them. They are not creating the scaffold. But if you want to see a successful implementation, I want you to give a call to a guy named Zach Edier. He is the lead developer at a company called Flow Software. Zach Edier, E-D-I-E-R. He used to be at Northrop Grumman, and he is now leading a complete, 3/4 of his staff are agents.
And Zach is doing it the right way. And Flow's release cycle has quadrupled. In fact, they just came out with a new release today.
They're the only ones doing anything.
They're the only ones doing it right. So far, as far as in terms of what I've seen. All right, go ahead.
You done?
I'm all done. Thank you.
I just hear